Good morning.
Good morning.
That's good morning to you folks here, and good morning to the folks on Zoom. Speaking of whom, they can receive better if we turn our phones off or put them on airplane mode. So if you can do that here. And I always want to say hello to the screen, but I don't know where the I'm not sure that connects with them. Yeah, got the hands. That's good. There are about as many of them there as there are here. Kind of a nice split. We're going to start our worship this morning with the opening hymn in Worship and Song, the Green Book. It's number 307, Earth Was Given as a Garden. And Amanda's going to lead. I recently read a book titled The Cost of Free Land, Jews, Lakota, and an American Inheritance. At the book's beginning was this quote: "He, Rabbi Tarfon, used to say, 'It is not your duty to finish the work, but neither are you at liberty to neglect it.'" The author, Rebecca Claren, had discovered that the free land offered by the U.S. government to her Jewish family fleeing pogroms in Eastern Europe had actually been taken from Native people. She was seeking a way to make restitution and healing. She asked a Native American judge for advice. The judge suggested she look to her own culture to learn what it said Every culture has experience with being wrong, with finding a way forward, said Judge Abby Abenanti. We're all humans, and we all make mistakes. So Clarence studied with a rabbi to learn maybe what she should do. In her book, she paraphrases Maimonides' law of repentance. First, stop doing the harm. Second, confess as specifically as possible what harm you have caused, and ideally say this truth out loud in public. Third, begin the work of transforming yourself from a person capable of causing such harm to one who isn't. She says in ancient days, people changed their names. Today, she says, it might mean therapy. Fourth, make financial restitution that reflects the size of the harm. Fifth, apologize in a way that doesn't necessarily anticipate being forgiven, but that makes clear to the victim that you have heard them and that you understand how you have caused them pain. Finally, when you face the opportunity to cause the same sort of harm, make different choices. At the beginning, she quoted, "It is not your duty to finish the work, but neither are you at the liberty to neglect it." Toward the end of the book, she had another quote from another rabbi. "If you believe breaking is possible, believe fixing is possible." We'll start with announcements, starting with the people on Zoom. If you have an announcement, be sure to unmute yourself. It'll bring you a mic. Using the mic makes you more audible to the people on Zoom as well as the people here. And tell us your name so the people on Zoom know who they're hearing.
Mary Dooley. It is with regret that I make this announcement. I don't know if I've ever started something and been withdrawn from it, but that's what I'm doing. After Cindy gave us her wonderful account of the pilgrimage to civil rights memorials, I suggested that we maybe organize something like that ourselves and put out a thing for people to express interest. And there were probably 14 people who said they were interested, but that was just exploratory. And I'm simply finding that one thing after another is sapping my energy, and I don't think I have the energy to pursue that project anymore. I will be very glad to share what I've developed if somebody else wants to pick that up. But sorry, I don't think I can do it.
It should be on. Anyway, I'm Sue Walton, and I'm wearing my hat as clerk of the Western Yearly Meetings Peace and Social Concerns. And from our sister organization, the Friends Conference on Legislation for Indiana, I've been asked to have us promote a Bill 246, which is involving the environment and especially the wetlands in the metropolitan area. Another good bill is number 277, which concerns housing, and we should not support Bill 1383, which is a bad environment building. So please consider contacting your state legislature and voicing your opinion. Thank you.
Meeting for business will be today around noonish after the rise of service.
Oh God, we are grateful this morning for birth. And for these timely reminders of our beginnings. Keep uppermost in our minds, O God, that we are always adding to our years. But as we do that, let us revere and cherish most deeply our beginnings. Let us remember and let us see in others so that we remember, O God, that we once all were cherished and loved and protected. So that when we look at our enemies, O God, when we look at those who disappoint us, who annoy us, who anger us, that we see in them the innocence of their birth. So that we find welling up within ourselves a compassion for them, a remembrance of them and the promise they once held to the world. Oh God, strip from us the hate and cynicism that so often accrues with time, and give us fresh eyes, O God, to see all your children anew. Let us care for them as you care for us, tenderly, lovingly, devotedly. Oh God, this is our prayer on this first day, to have new eyes and new hearts. Amen. Well, now it is time for our community giving, and we'll ask some robust, strong people to come pass our sacks around. Thank you. Well, I was having lunch with a friend this week, and we got to talking about television. And he asked me my favorite station. I said, well, I don't have a TV. When I married my wife, it was abundantly clear that I could have a television or have my wife. And so I picked my wife. He said, well, how do you know anything then? How do you know what's going on without television? I said, well, there's the internet and there's newspapers and conversations, and so you can keep up with current events. I know, for instance, that Vivek Ramaswamy dropped out of the Republican primary this week. I know those people who were counting on his stunning comeback are no doubt disappointed after his departure. I think we can all agree our nation has been well served by billionaires with no political experience. But it appears Vivek Ramaswamy's time is not yet. Not yet. On the plus side, he is only 38 years old. There's still time. Had he been elected, he would have been the youngest person ever elected to the presidency, 4 years younger than Theodore Roosevelt, who assumed the presidency in 1901 at the age of 42. This seems as good a time as any to announce that I will be announcing my candidacy for the presidency. I've belonged to both parties over the years, Republicans and Democrats, so we'll anticipate the support of both of them. I pledge to build a wall across our northern border to keep out the Canadians who will surely be flocking to the United States after I institute a guaranteed minimum income, the same one proposed, incidentally, by Richard Nixon in 1969, the Family Assistance Plan, which would have paid a guaranteed minimum income to poor families. Nixon's plan passed in the House, but died a slow and painful death in a Senate subcommittee, an obstacle I believe we could overcome with your financial support to my campaign, for which God will bless you and cause you to prosper. Naturally, I will require a substantial amount of paid time off, which I am confident, knowing you as I do, that you will accommodate. Wouldn't that be something? A guaranteed minimum income. The book of Acts come to life. Listen to the 4th chapter, 32nd verse. Now the whole group of those who believed were of one heart and soul, and no one claimed private ownership of any possessions, but everything they owned was held in common. We don't know what drugs Luke was on when he wrote that, but it certainly qualifies as one of the most hallucinogenic moments in biblical history. Most Bible scholars believe it didn't actually happen, that it was more aspirational than common practice, but you have to admit it is still a lovely thought, a lovely thought. This image of one heart and one soul, of using one's power for good, of people enjoying not only the same material status, but the same political status. One heart, one soul. What an especially winsome thought in this age of oligarchy, when the only qualifications for public office seems to be wealth and the arrogance that so often accompanies it. How do you use your power? How do you use your power? We've been talking about depression these past several weeks. Can anyone tell me, Mark, I'll have you answer it since you feel free to comment publicly. Can anyone tell me, go see your doctor? That's right. That's the first thing you do when you experience chronic depression, to make sure there aren't biological causes that can be medically addressed. But after that, we have identified the practices and habits we can cultivate to enrich and elevate our lives. And today I want to add to our list using our power for good, using our moral and ethical energy to better the lives of others. That's what power is, after all, our moral and ethical energy. Let's dispense once and for all with the notion that you and I don't have power, that you and I lack the moral and ethical energy to affect positive change. We too often say to ourselves, what can I do? No one listens to me. I can't do anything about this situation. But as Cindy reminded us, if we believe that something is broken, we can also believe it should be fixed. We tell ourselves that we are powerless when the task before us seems too daunting. But when we think of power as energy, when we stop viewing power as something others have, something that is the sole domain of the highly placed, and begin to realize that you and I also possess the moral and ethical energy to shape our world, that we have that power too. One of my favorite stories from our Quaker history is the story of John Woolman. Born to Quaker parents in New Jersey in 1720, at the age of 26, while working as a store clerk, he was asked by his employer to write a bill of sale for an enslaved person. Woolman refused, and instead persuaded his employer to give the man his freedom. That's how moral and ethical energy works. But Woolman didn't stop there. One slave had been set free. Millions more remained in bondage. So this store clerk, now we venerate him as a saint, but remember when he was doing the work, he was a store clerk. So this store clerk hit the road, traveling from one Quaker meeting to another, urging his fellow friends to manumit their enslaved people. And he used shame. Don't ever dismiss the appropriate use of shame. Sometimes shame is the Spirit saying to us, you are better than this. Sometimes shame is appropriate this. When he would stay in a Quaker home and an enslaved person did anything for him, Woolman would reach in his pocket and pay them right then for their service, to the embarrassment of his hosts. Now, some of those hosts, humiliated and angry by his breach of manners, would order him from their homes. But just as many, shamed by their immorality, freed their slaves. We know this because the interesting thing about Quakers is that we are wonderful record keepers. We write down everything. Joining a Quaker meeting is the surest way to guarantee your immortality, since everything you will ever do in a Quaker meeting will be written down and stored away for hundreds of years. certain Quakers would write about Woolman, saying, "Who is this store clerk to tell us what to do with our property?" But this store clerk exercised his power so courageously, so creatively, that by his death in 1772, one could not be a Quaker and an enslaver. A store clerk, John Woolman, did what the founder and leader of Pennsylvania, William Penn, could not do. How do you use your power? Have you ever known someone who used their power maliciously, selfishly, then ended their day in happiness? Have you ever known anyone who neglected and denied their moral and ethical energy, then looked back on their life satisfied with their accomplishments? Our happiness never begins with the mere accumulation of power. Our happiness begins when we use our power on behalf of others. Our happiness begins when we devote our moral and ethical energy to the betterment of others. This is why some people can be the President of the United States and still be miserable. They have mistaken power with privilege as an end and not a means, as a reward for themselves and not as a blessing for others. A story. Theodore Roosevelt became the president in 1901 after the assassination of William McKinley in Buffalo, New York, while he was attending the Pan American Exposition. When McKinley was shot by Leon Czolgosz, a man standing behind Czolgosz wrestled him to the ground and took the gun from him before anyone else could be killed. His name was James Benjamin Parker, a black man born into slavery in Atlanta, Georgia in 1857. The day before, he had lost his job working as a busboy for a catering company at the exposition. After the shooting, Parker was approached with several commercial offers, all of which he refused, stating in a newspaper interview, "I do not think that the American people would like me to make capital out of these unfortunate circumstances. I am glad I was able to be of service to our country." We have a curious custom in this nation. And this is our tendency to look for our saviors among the well-placed and well-heeled, who seem always inevitably to disappoint us. These days I find my heroes among the John Woolmans, the James Parkers, the store clerks, the busboys, who daily devote their moral and ethical energy to the betterment of others.
The common phrase of power corrupts and absolute power corrupts absolutely is a very shoddy belief and does nothing but evoke cynicism and helplessness. So I'm glad you addressed that, Phil. What we think and what we feel influences how we act. What if politically we acted like the Irish do musically? They, if you're in an Irish crowd and somebody starts some music and you say, "Oh, I can't do that," they will contest you. You have a voice, don't you? You can use it. Or you can tap some spoons or your feet or your hands, but you can make music, and they do, and it's marvelous. I mean, they get your feet stomping real fast. What if we did that politically?
Our hearts clear? If so, we'll sing a hymn, 172, Nearer My God to Thee, which occurred to me as I looked at it, that it references the story of Jacob and sleeping on the stone and having a vision. I thought, there's one of those guys that changed his name. Eventually, not immediately, but eventually, to take a different path.
when we use our energy for a single event, there is no telling the good that might be accomplished. Woolman began with one slave in one conversation with his boss. I have a story, a short one. I have a friend who has been my friend for a long time, and I've always sensed within him this inward struggle. And one time we were alone and he began talking about it, about coming from a home that was just racked with division and pain and anger, largely the consequence of his father, who had also had a horrific bringing up. I asked how the matter was finally absolved, and he said, it was absolved when my father went to counseling. I said, who did he see? He said, all I know, it was a red-headed nun from Marian College. I said, what happened then? I said, what happened then? He said, our family life got better. Our family life got better. And now my friend is a good father to his children, and they don't see in him and experience in him what he experienced in his own father. Because Mary Dooley woke up one day and said, today I will do my duty. And she did it. And the ripple effect of that continues still. Continues still. So don't you worry that you can't get us on a bus down to the Civil Rights Center. We're going to get there. We're going to get there. Don't you worry about that. And you'll be with us. Friends, go home. Write on a piece of paper, WWMD. What would Mary do? And you do it. Turn and greet friends. Thank you. I appreciate it.